Hello, my name is Dr. Jackalyn Rainosek, and I'm with DTP-Leadership Group. This is Hot Topic Bold Talk. I have a number of things I want to talk to you about today. I've titled this podcast Behind the Curtain and the Plain Sight. What Trump's behavior tells us and why accountability truly matters. Now, I have some interesting resources for this particular podcast. And I think it gives you a really clear picture of what he is like. But I'm also going to present you with some things that are happening now that people are really resisting and refusing to do a lot of the things that he wants done. So let me introduce this and just say, this is a documentation. It's not hyper, bold. What this podcast is written not to persuade people who are committed to denying reality. I can't do anything about those people. But it is written to those of you who are exhausted by being gaslighted, people who are told that what they see, read, and hear is exaggerated, biased, or invented. It is written for the citizens who want sources, examples, and verbatim evidence. And they can use this when confronting mega narratives that rely on volumes of sayings instead of facts. So I'm touching a lot of you. I think there are many of you that may have voted for Trump. And now you say, I really made a mistake. I see what's happening now. So what follows is not a character assassination. It is a record of behavior drawn from investigative journalists, court proceedings, and firsthand accounts from career professionals that interact with him every day. If the reality feels harsh to you, that it's because the behavior is harsh and I think unacceptable. So I titled the first section on what I'm going to be talking about, Weirder Than All of Them Put Together. That's what a Secret Service agent said. In the Halfway Cafe, the article provides precisely what is the kind of behavior that the Secret Service agent has seen, and yet this person has served 7 presidents of the United States. And he says, weirder than ever. This content matters to you and me. These agents are trained to adapt to personality differences. They have served Democrats and Republicans, introverts and extroverts, disciplinarians and charmers. The agent's conclusion is unambiguous. The examples are very clear. Donald Trump is weirder than all of them put together. What follows in this article is not policy disagreement. It is behavioral documentation. It's behavior that he does toward his family or interacts with his family, and particularly women that are not a part of his family. According to this account, Trump has never once ridden in a car with Melania or Barron because Melania forbids it. This is not gossip. It is an observation about the marital dynamics, so concerning that even proximity is restricted. enforced not by staff, but by Trump's own spouse. The article also documents repeated interventions by the Secret Service to prevent Trump from bringing women into his limousine. The Secret Service has to regularly investigate and find and invent excuses for why women Trump invites to ride alone with him in his car can't, in order to save the government millions in under the table hush money payments. That sentence alone reveals anticipated misconduct, prior experiences with financial settlements, institutional normalization of preventive damage control. This is not normal presidential behavior. And we go on with this story in this description that the Secret Service gave. Sexualization, Epstein references, and disturbing jokes. One of the most chilling details involves Trump repeating a lot of things that he and Jeffrey Epstein did together. He presents them as casual joking and without shame. But they tell the truth about his relationship with Epstein. The agent reports Trump is a big fan of the Swedish pop group ABBA. And when he hears the lyrics, "You are the dancing queen, young and sweet, only 17," he tells the driver, Epstein used to love this song. Of course he would. He took advantage of young women many young women in his life that are victims of Epstein. This is not an offhanded comment. It is a pattern of deliberate reference to a convicted sex trafficker that connected and had connections with underage girls, yet it's delivered by Trump in humor. I don't think there's anything laughable about a young girl being sexually molested by adult men. The fact that this occurs inside a presidential motorcade speaks volumes about Trump's sense of reality and his refusal to accept that he would have any consequences for saying this. Hygiene, contempt for staff, and stench pay. This is one that's tragic. The article documents behavior so extreme that it triggers a quiet labor action. The Secret Service had to start offering bonuses to drivers of the presidential limousine because Trump smells so bad. It continues. The agent quietly went on strike at the start of the second term and refused to drive him without extra stench pay. This is not satire. It describes the federal agents refusing to perform assigned duties due to unsanitary conditions created by the president. That the consequences Trump's objected to most was missing a few days of golf due to the fact that people did not want to drive him around. It illustrates his priorities, which is golf, not how he treats other people. The agent says there are several behaviors that point to Trump's enjoyment of humiliation and fear. So here we get into his cruelty that I think is so evident. Once a month, Trump likes to go on and rant about some Republican member of Congress. So he drives, it takes him on a long drive up to the Virginia farm country, and then he leaves them, him or her, there to walk back to DC because he's pissed off at him. And more chilling still is Trump occasionally asks his Secret Service to run over people just to see how they react and test how loyal they are to him. This is not metaphorical. That is, we are seeing, and I'm describing what a sitting president is asking armed federal agents to contemplate vehicle homicide to have be as a loyalty test. These are so outrageous examples that it is very hard anyone can do them, but much less a president of the United States. He also has an admiration for political violence. So the article reports that Trump makes repeated comments like this. You know, in Russia and North Korea, their security agents will push the leader's political enemies out of a window. And even more explicitly, Trump has asked the secret agents to pull a Princess Diana on Mike Pence, Kevin McCarthy, Eric Trump, and J.D. Vance. This is not policy rhetoric. It is fascination with murder expressed to federal agents responsible for protecting lives. Now, I want to go on. After that article, you need to read it. It's on my reference list because it gives more examples that I have not included here. I want to go to the Epstein files when the paper trail grows too large to ignore what Trump has done with Epstein. The Washington Post has an article which cites and makes clear that the latest Epstein documents released are not marginal or not speculative. It involves nearly 30,000 documents, and there are more. As of yesterday, there were more that were given. So that is a small number compared to what's going to be coming. And what has been released is among them, there are two subpoenas sent to Mar-a-Lago, employment records, internal jail communications with Trump, redacted tax records that might show what he did with Epstein, multiple references to Trump across investigative materials. Most critical, the article states, an email from an unidentified federal prosecutor in 2020 alerted the recipient that Mr. Trump had flown on Mr. Epstein's private plane many more times than previously had been reported. And for sure, he knew about a time when there was a 20-year-old woman on that flight. This matters because Trump has consistently minimized his association with Epstein. There is no longer anything about rumor. It is about government prosecutions documenting deceptive things that Trump has done because the public statements and factual records show how he's connected to Epstein. Another thing that I think is disturbing is he makes this comment: I run the country and the world. He's not a sovereign. He's not a king of something. Yet there's a very clear message in the Atlantic article which references Trump at the apex of his perceived power. By April 2025, Over 140 executive orders have been done. He has such a complicit Republican Congress, they do nothing to manage him or utilize the power that they have in the Constitution of the United States. There are institutions which have been coerced into submission. There's open discussion about tearing up the Constitution. There's public musing about him having a third term. The magazine quotes Trump directly. I run the country and the world. That is not, again, metaphorical language. It is a declaration of personal sovereignty. Now, I think, though, that is his past. There is a collapse of his image. By December 2025, The Atlantic notes, Trump seems a whole lot smaller. Specific examples include declining approval on immigration and the economy. There is a very clear message in the United States. People do not like what he is doing with immigration, and he's done nothing to help with the economy. Not only that, I have another article that says he spent so much time trying to get the Nobel Prize and is still working on it. He has forgotten what his mission was and what he promised his voters. Republicans openly and repeatedly are beginning to defy him. One of the things that I think is most disturbing the new year, we are going to begin without health care for millions of people. The Republicans' proposal for health care was ridiculous, and it was not passed. And the Obamacare, which is very seriously needed, was not approved either. There are Republicans, though, that are getting a lot from their constituents who depend on Obamacare, and so they are having to start face reality. I don't know what's going to happen in January, but I know that there are Republicans that realize they've got to do something about health care. Another thing is, Democrats are out manipulating him. The Epstein scandal resurfacing with embarrassing realizations is really something that that is going to make a major difference in how people view him. The sad part is there are plenty of articles out he has at the meetings he's had, and it's very evident. So the strong man depends on dominance, but his fatigue, the scandals, and the defiance puncture the myth of him as a strong man. I'm glad to say I have often wondered how Roberts could do what he's doing on the Supreme Court. And probably I'm going to have something on the Supreme Court and what its justices, and particularly in Roberts' position. But there is an article, The Seven and the Washington Post say Justice refused to allow Trump to deploy National Guard in Chicago area for now. That is Roberts controlling the courts, which he should have done, the Supreme Court, which he should have done all along. This matters because Trump sought to bring military forces into urban areas. States do have the right to manage their own states. They don't need the President of the United States to decide he's going to do something in their state. The court intervened despite a conservative majority, which is interesting. It marked a rare defeat for Trump's expansion of executive power. Chief Justice Roberts' role is not heroism. What he's doing is containment. That's the reason I want to talk more about him I want to talk more about Justice Roberts in another podcast. Now, let's talk about his retribution. He tried to really destroy Letitia James and Comey, but the grand juries would not do it. The New York Times has an excellent article. A federal grand jury declined to indict James. Not once, twice. The article calls it a striking rejection of the administration's retribution campaign. We have never had a president that went on a retribution campaign like Trump is doing. Grand juries are not political pundits. They are citizens presented with evidence, and they said no to both of these individuals. In this article, it's very clear they talk more about Comey, which was not indicted either by any of the grand juries. They have refused to indict him. So it's a statement. Trump, you don't get to punish people because you don't like them, because we're not going to support it. Another action that I'm thankful for is something that happened in Colorado and the rejection of the presidential pardon. Trump has attempted to pardon Tina Peters, who was a denier of the election in 2020. He was dismissed outright in Colorado. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser stated plainly, there is no legal merit to have her receive a pardon. This affirmed a core principle. The president cannot override state convictions. So we're seeing a lot more resistance, and we're seeing a much clearer message that's coming out, which I think is very helpful. And I think we'll see many more in 2026. Gerrymandering and the fear of democracy. Let me give you an example of something. The Missouri Republicans forced a new designed benefit Trump map. However, the voters in Missouri don't like it at all, and they have decided to continue to take action to prevent that from happening. But the article that I have talks about the powerful Trump-aligned interests are sparing no expense to defeat a voter-led effort. The money surge reveals fear, not confidence. So we need to support those voters in Missouri because they're saying, no, you're not going to design a map that is unfair. Unfortunately, we have not had that happen in Texas. So what I want to do is I want to conclude this podcast by saying, yes, I gave you some harsh reality. I also gave you some documentation that you can use. These examples are not isolated. They form a cohesive pattern. Disregard for human dignity, fascination with authoritarian violence. We're seeing it all over. I think it's hysterical that he thinks that he received the Peace Prize because he uses violence to get what he wants. And yet some of this has not maintained at all in the areas that he's used violence. We see it in Gaza. We see it all over the world. Contempt for democratic participation. That's another thing that we're seeing in all these stories. Retaliation against critics, yet the critics are standing up and the courts are supporting them. Personal enrichment alongside public harm. Trump is a billionaire now, and who he's surrounding himself with are billionaires or millionaires. He has no clarity about what's happening in this country with the ordinary person because he is no longer aware of what is happening. And I think Green is telling the truth about what he is doing. And I'm giving you several articles by her. Even though I don't support a lot of what she says, I think she's speaking out on some points that are really important to look at. This document also is what I would say you can prove things because you have documentation. Truth is not optional. We have to tell the truth. Democracy does not self-sustain. We are the ones that sustain democracy. And documentation is a form of resistance. Documentation is a form of resistance. That's the reason I give you a reference list. So I want to say to you, I hope your holidays have been what you wanted them to be. If not, then you need to look to the current administration and see how your life is being impacted. Then you can make a much more discerning decision about who you're going to vote for as we go through the various elections in 2026. Blessings to each of you. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and I'd be happy to hear from you. So it's very easy to contact me. Thank you.